Hi, everybody. Welcome to my channel for those of you who are new, and welcome back for those of you who have watched my content before. And thank you for, if that's the case, thank you for watching multiple videos. I appreciate you. Anyways, we've been talking on and off about the Great American Songbook, and most recently we discussed George Gershwin's life and works. But there was a specific musical that came up in that video that really warrants further discussion. I know I love talking about anything related to the songbook because there's always something new to uncover, even though it's nearly 100 years old. Let's go ahead and dive into the controversial musical Porgy and Bess. As a reminder, the Great American Songbook was an influential era of American and pop jazz standards that started in the early to mid 1900s and can range as late as the late 1950s to maybe even the early 1960s. It's important to note it is not an actual songbook, but instead is an era of music known for timeless melodies, memorable lyrics, and enduring cultural relevance or influence. Ultimately, the Great American Songbook is an era known for developing a core American music identity that influences what's being released today. So, diving into the specific musical Porgy and Bess. What exactly is it? Well, it was a 1935 American opera by George Gershwin that told a story about the experiences of Black people in America. The lyrics were by his brother Ira Gershwin, with a libretto by DuBose Hayward, and it was based on a 1925 book by the same author. Originally, Porgy and Bess was controversial because Gershwin stipulated it could only be performed by an all-black cast, considering that the characters in the opera were Black. In that way, he ensured that no white actors would play the characters in blackface, as he found this to be unacceptable, thankfully. Now, however, it is controversial for entirely different reasons. Specifically, it is particularly controversial due to the story itself and the portrayal of the characters. Yet, despite the controversy, it is still an incredibly influential American opera because it blends jazz and blues into classical music. And opera, let's be real, has historically been a very white-dominated art form. And so Porgy and Bess is one of the few operas about Black lives that reached a degree of popularity in the early to mid-1900s. What is the plot of this opera we're talking about, right? So the opera is set in fictional Catfish Row, a poor African-American community in Charleston, South Carolina. The story revolves around the complex relationships and struggles of its residents. Porgy is a disabled beggar who falls in love with this woman, Bess. Bess is a woman with a troubled past and is involved with the rough Crown and the drug dealer's sporting life. When Crown commits murder and flees, Porgy and Bess's relationship faces challenges. And that's basically the core of the opera. Porgy, despite his physical limitations, ultimately becomes a protective and supportive figure for Bess. The opera explores themes of love, community, and social issues, depicting the character's resilience in the face of adversity. The narrative also delves into tensions between individual desires and the constraints of societal norms. Musically, Porgy and Bess is celebrated for its incorporation of jazz and blues into a classical operatic framework. The opera features iconic songs like Summertime and It Ain't Necessarily So. While initially met with mixed reviews, Porgy and Bess has since gained recognition as a masterful and unique work, contributing to the cultural tapestry of American music. Ultimately, Porgy and Bess has always been controversial. both at release and now, but for entirely different reasons. See, originally, it was controversial because Gershwin stipulated it could only be performed by an all-black cast to make sure that no white actors were able to perform the roles in blackface. Honestly, it was a time of segregation when this opera was released. Blackface was incredibly common, and Gershwin didn't want it to undermine the messaging within the opera. In fact, it was so controversial at the time with that stipulation that it was banned in a lot of opera houses and theaters due to the requirement of having an all-black cast. Of course, as time passed, perceptions of the opera have changed. Porgy and Bess was written and originated by an all-white creative team, none of whom obviously had first-hand experience of what it was actually like to be black in the 1930s. The characters and settings also reinforced negative stereotypes at the time, with portrayals of major characters as drug addicts and criminals with rampant domestic abuse, with no black individuals on the original creative team, and heavy reliance on stereotypes at the time. It calls into question whether this opera in any way, shape, or form accurately reflects any black experience of the time in the American South. But that's not where the controversy stops. The language used in the libretto is also considered to be highly appropriative, as it is written by a white author, but uses language and dialects associated with African American communities in the American South. Unfortunately, there are also associated concerns about whether this dialect was even applied correctly. With all of these concerns, it calls into question whether this should still be performed at the level and frequency today as it's been. Honestly, for an opera from the 1930s, it has had many significant, relatively recent productions. Most recently, it has even appeared at the Met in 2019. Before that, there were major London productions in 2006, 2011, and 2014. But this only includes some of the most major or noteworthy performances. This list does not include any use of the material outside the full show or more minor performances or runs. Yet, even with this limited scope, there are 4 major runs of this opera in the past 20 years. That's a huge number considering how many well-known operas exist. Despite these controversies, Porgy and Bess is also recognized as a significant and groundbreaking work that incorporates elements of African American music, including jazz, blues, and spirituals, into the operatic form. Its complex characters and exploration of social issues do add a significant depth to the narrative. While acknowledging the criticisms, many also appreciate the opera's musical brilliance and the challenges it poses for modern interpretations. The ongoing discussion around Porgy and Bess reflects broader conversations about representation, cultural appropriation, and the responsibility of artists in portraying diverse experiences. It's also clear that regardless of where someone stands on the controversy surrounding Porgy and Bess, it is essential to elevate BIPOC composers and directors in opera and theater to increase the diversity of major works available. This opera, again, has so many pluses and minuses. So much of this controversy surrounding Porgy and Bess could have been helped if there were Black members of the creative team. That's one of the reasons it is so important to continue to elevate BIPOC voices in opera and theater. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. What's your take on Porgy and Bess? Should it still be performed today with the acknowledgement of the time in history it was originally created? Or is it better left in the past? If you found this video interesting, please do hit subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. Feel free to comment below with any thoughts surrounding Porgy and Bess, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say. Thank you again for watching, and have a great rest of your day.